and all of them were in absolute terror of this woman who's sitting here telling this story. And the hair on the back of my neck stood up, which I've never had that happen before. And my eyes started watering, my chest got tight, and I went into full adrenaline fight or flight panic mode. And I was just like, you've got to get out of here right now.
There's a force in all of us that science knows nothing about, the force of fear.
Welcome everyone to Induced Fear. I'm your host Oscar, and with me I have Rob. And you're in my neck of the woods, right? Here in Colorado?
Yeah, right.
Nice. Not too far. I'm in Denver, so.
Okay, yeah, not far.
Yeah. And I'd put a call out on Facebook for anybody who has any stories they'd like to share, and you said you had a couple.
Yeah,
I'd be willing to share.
Got a couple good ones for you. Let's see. Let's start with a little background, I guess. I don't know if this is true, but my grandmother was died in the wool Christian. She, never would lie about anything. And apparently, when I was a little baby, like just a few weeks old, I had croup. And at that point in time, the folk remedy was to put a baby in the basement where it was cool. And we lived in a house in Kansas. And they put me down in the basement, and there was just a drawstring on a light bulb up on the rafters. So it would take an adult to reach that light. And a couple hours later, they had heard laughing coming from the basement, like a man laughing. And they went down there. My mom and my grandma went down because they thought one of my uncles was drunk, come home and was messing with me. And they got down there, and the light was on. There was nobody in the room. And I guess I was staring up at the ceiling, laughing with a man's voice coming out of me. My grandma swears that happened. So that's the first strange thing. But when I was 10 years old, we were living in a house in Littleton on Powers Street, and I had no problem. My room was in the basement, and I had no problem while I was down there or going down there. But whenever I would come out of that basement, it would feel like I was being chased. And my brother, who's 2 years younger than me, had real similar experiences of that feeling of being chased. So in the basement, whoever had lived there before us, the guy had built a bathroom in there, but the bathroom floor was raised up like 13 inches in this block, and that's what the toilet was sitting on, which was just like, now that I'm looking back, I'm like, man, was somebody buried under there, or
Yeah.
it was really strange. And the toilet wasn't functional. So here's this concrete block with the toilet sitting on it in this basement. Well, years had passed, and me and the family were all sitting around talking. And my mom says, "Hey, do you remember that house we used to live on over off Powers?" And I was like, "Yeah, I hated that house." And she says, "Yeah, so did I. Whenever I came out of the basement, it felt like I was being chased." And I mean, the feeling, it was terrifying. It felt like there was somebody just inches behind you, trying to grab you and keep you in that basement. And she had that same exact feeling. And my dad kind of went sheet white. And same thing with my dad. He's an old Vietnam vet, no nonsense. Doesn't believe in ghosts. Doesn't believe in heaven, hell, none of that. And he kind of turned white. And we looked at him, and he's like, I had the exact same feeling whenever I would come up out of that basement. So we started talking, and I guess at one point, my mom and dad were trying to get into Christianity, and they had these Christian friends that would come over to the house there on this same house, and they had a nice fire going. It was wintertime, and they were all hanging out talking. And I guess every time one of them had said Jesus or Jesus Christ, the fire would pop. And I guess it did this like 10 times in a row regularly. And my parents told me that story later, and I was just like, wow, that's pretty weird, that we all had
It's pretty trippy.
separate experiences in that house. So I never have done any research on the house, but there was definitely something happening in that house. I'm not prone or given to weird feelings or the spooks or anything like that, but this house affected my entire family in that way, where we knew it was the basement, and there was something about that basement that just did not want you to leave the basement.
Yeah,
So
to the point where everybody felt it.
everybody, non-believers and kids, and the whole family felt it. And it was 35 years later, where we all talked about it, and at the same time, it just kind of validated each individual story when the other person said, "Yeah, I know exactly what you mean," So that was a pretty interesting thing when I was a kid. But the story I really wanted to tell you was I was 17 years old, and I was working a part-time job building houses. And one of the guys was a plumber there, and he had a little band. And he said, "Hey, man, you want to come hear my band play?" And we went over, and they didn't have a singer, so they had me sing a couple songs just goofing around. And they liked the way I sang, so they said, "Hey, why don't you just sing in the band with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." I'm 17. I'm like, definitely. So as a matter of fact, they used to play little bars, and my guitar player's girlfriend would color in my peach fuzz so I could get in the bars. But yeah, so we're in this little rock band, and the drummer comes to me and he's like, "Hey man, these rich people that a friend of mine know want to book us for a party up above Evergreen in this mansion up there. It's going to be really cool. It's going to be catered. It's millionaires that own it. It's going to be a good time." So I was all excited about going up there, and we drove up. It's right above Evergreen Lake. The house is still there. It's a multi-million-dollar home. It's a stone. Some people from Colorado might have even seen the house before. It's a stone A-frame cabin. It's like 4 stories high. Absolutely gorgeous. Big manicured lawn. We pull in. There's limousines. There's beer trucks. There's caterers, and they had the whole bottom floor for the band and the party goers. And they had set up a stage, and there was troughs of beer, and just all out, really expensive party.
Yeah, it
So
sounds like it.
yeah, yeah, it was cool. I was kind of blown away. So we play a couple songs and stop and take a little rest and walk around and mingle. And this guy keeps coming down. There's a spiral staircase that leads from the first floor down to the basement area where this party's happening. And this guy keeps coming down, and he's dressed kind of like a mod. He's got like a vest with fringe and the little round hippie glasses. And he keeps coming around, and he's like looking for certain people, and he'd grab somebody and they'd go upstairs for a little while, and they'd come down. And he kept doing this throughout the night. So I figured, hey, they're doing drugs, whatever it is, what it is. you
Yeah.
know. And so finally he comes down about 2 hours into the night, and he tells me, "Hey, you want to come upstairs for a second? I'd like to talk to you." So we go up and we sit down at this little table, and everything upstairs, there were no electric lights upstairs at all. It was all candles and lanterns up there. So we sit down, and sure enough, guy pulls out, a little bit of cocaine, and I'm like, I don't do cocaine, thank you, man. I was just a kid still.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay." Well, he says, "Hey, I just wanted to ask you some questions. Since you're with the band, are you from Colorado? Do you have family here? Do you have close friends and relatives live here?" Really weird questions, like almost like a job interview, but
Yeah.
very much so about if I had family and ties in Colorado. So I was just like, that's kind of weird. So I go back downstairs, and we get to playing a few more songs, and the guy comes back down and basically stops one of our songs and tells me, "Hey, the lady of the house would like to meet you." So I'm like, "Okay." I'm looking around. He's like, "Oh, no, no, she's upstairs. You'll go up and meet with her." So I was like, "Okay, cool." So there's an elevator that goes to the top of this house. That's how enormous this A-frame is.
Damn.
And he tells me, "When you get up to the fourth floor, walk to the end of the hall, first door on the left, right there." So I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I get in this elevator, and uh, as I'm going up, I just got this weird, overwhelming, like, whoa, this is weird. I don't really know how to describe the feeling. It wasn't fear, but it was similar to fear. It was like an elevated state of awareness, I guess.
Yeah.
And I get out of the
Something
elevator, and
wasn't normal.
no, yeah, something was off,
Yeah.
definitely. So I get to the top of the elevator, turn, and again, there's no electric lights. There's just candles down both sides of the floor, down the hallway to this room. So I walk down there, and the doors open just a crack. I swing it open, and there's about 20 people in this big, huge bedroom, and they're sitting on bean bags and chairs and the floor around this great, big, huge bed. And there's this young woman in the bed. I would guess she was, I don't know, 25, 26 years old. She's wearing a nightgown, tasteful nightgown. She had the blankets pulled up over her waist. And she's like, "Oh, hey, I was just telling my friends a story here. Why don't you have a seat, and, you can join us for a little while?" So I was like, "Okay." So I sit down, and she's telling the story, and it's not very funny. and it's just not very entertaining. It's just kind of this blase story. And these guys, all these people in this room are like stage laughing at this woman. I guess I should tell you too, they were all dressed in like 60s style clothes, almost like this was a costume party, but none of the guests downstairs were dressed like that. Everybody was in contemporary clothes downstairs. And
Weird.
they're laughing way too hard at this story, and just, I could tell it was stage laughing. And I happened to look out of the corner of my eye at the guy next to me when he was laughing, and I caught a glimpse of what was really on his face. It was pure terror. He had a look on his face like he was in a room with a tiger or something. It was terror. And I was like, whoa. So this conversation goes on, and they're laughing at the proper points. And I'm becoming more aware. I'm watching people out of the corner of my eye, and all of them were in absolute terror of this woman who's sitting here telling this story. And the hair on the back of my neck stood up, which I've never had that happen before. And my eyes started watering, my chest got tight, and I went into full adrenaline fight or flight panic mode. And I was just like, you've got to get out of here right now, because whatever's happening here is not good, and you've got to leave now. So I basically just rudely I said, "Oh, hey, I gotta go. I'm sorry." And they're like, "No, no, no, wait, don't leave. Hang out, stay with us. We can party." I'm like, "Hey, man, I gotta go right now." I go out of the room. I go downstairs. My guitar player driven me. I said, "Hey, man, if you don't give me the keys to your car, I'm gonna take them out of your pocket. I'm leaving right now. This isn't right. We have to go." And it only took a couple of minutes for me yelling and screaming in his face to convince him. And he was like, "All right, man, let me grab my guitar." And we ended the show right then and left. And he was like, "What happened? What happened?" And I really couldn't say. I was just like, that woman, though, something wasn't right up there, man. Something was just like primally off, like instinct fired in me. And to this day, I don't know if they were interviewing me to maybe join a cult, if they were entering me to possibly be a victim of a cult,
Yeah.
uh, if this woman might have been a witch. Uh, but looking back, and this sounds crazy, it felt like vampire-ish to me. The whole scene, when I got older and started thinking about things, it felt vampire-ish, man. So to this day, I don't know. The logical side of me says, look, they were a cult and they probably were looking for members, or but honestly, there's a part of me deep down where I'm like, man, that was a vampire, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what anybody else would make of that story, but yeah, it so I try to stay away from Evergreen. Uh, yeah, I don't know what was going on there, but so
Yeah, it kinda sounds like it from what you described. Like exactly what they portray in movies with vampires putting people in a trance.
yeah, yeah. And these people were totally putting on a stage performance for this woman, and not like an employee would do for their boss, or
Yeah.
a family member or somebody. Yeah, Uncle Jake's jokes are corny. We all just laugh. It was terror. It was, you had to see the look in their eyes. I haven't seen that kind of terror on people's faces, except I just haven't. I would imagine that those are the faces that you wear in war, or in, as your ship is sinking or something like that. Was
Yeah.
pure terror, and you could just read it on their faces. And they were just stage laughing for this woman, and the focus of everybody's fear in that room was this unassuming woman on the bed, you know and wow, yeah, it
Yeah,
scared me.
to the point where your body, like primally just went into.
Oh, just straight, I got chills up and down my spine. Every hair on my body stood up, and like I said, my eyes started watering, almost like crying, just watering. And my chest got tight, my throat got tight. I could hear my heart beating in my ears and in my chest. I was just like, I gotta leave now, right now.
Yeah.
I was like, forget the party, forget getting paid for this gig. I'm leaving now, and
Yeah. No, I don't blame you.
I don't know what the deal was, but and I've tried to consider different things. I try to do that, and and I thought, well, maybe she was super super rich, and they worked for her. But there's no, nah. It was terror.
That wouldn't explain the fear. Yeah, the fear on the people.
Yeah, it was terror. It was pure terror. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's super wild.
yeah. I don't tell many people that story because it sounds so out there, you know. And then like I said, my leaning towards it, I always have this little voice in my head that says vampire, and I
Yeah,
don't, you know, I know that's out there, so I don't tell a lot of people. I have asked people what they thought, and a lot of people are like, "Man, they were going to kill you," you know, that it was a cult, and they were definitely going to sacrifice you to their gods or something. But
yeah. By the way they were asking, like, do you have any family here?
yeah,
Any ties?
the
Yeah,
guy interviewed me. You know, he interviewed me, and it was all, how, what are your ties to Colorado? And all the questions kind of led to, would you be missed? You know,
yeah,
without him directly saying, would you be missed? That's where he was leading me with it, you know. And I didn't really put it together until I got up in the room and seen the terror on those people's faces, and I was
yeah,
like, ah, I see what, you know. There's something uh, nefarious happening here. No matter what it was, it was not good, you know. And there were no. I've had other people say, well, maybe it was a sex thing. There was no indications or, you know, nothing sexual at all.
yeah.
It
There was
was
nothing sexy about the situation, just
no,
terror.
just terror. Yeah, yeah. And the story was just some. I don't even remember, you know, what she was talking about. It was just real banal bullcrap daily stuff that she was
Yeah,
discussing, and these people just played it up so much. I was just,
yeah.
so I have no idea
That's
what
super
that was
wild.
about. Yeah,
Because even if it was like a vampire, like you say, it doesn't have to be like a blood sucking vampire. It
yeah,
can be like energy wise,
and
like just
energy.
to
Yeah,
sap the energy from you, the life.
yeah. Well, if that's what it was, she was feeding good off of those people.
Yeah.
She didn't need me around. I'll tell you that. Or if she fed off of fear, she was having a smorgasbord, because that room was, it was electric with fear. I you know, I, at the risk of, you know, repeating myself, it was palpable. The You could cut that fear, and once I saw it, it was obvious, and I don't know how she couldn't see it, because once I seen the fear, I could see it in every person in that room's face. You know, there was probably 10 or 12 people. You know, 4 or 5 women, the rest men. Uh, and like I said, their dress was really odd. They were all dressed like '60s mod style clothes, and the
Yeah.
guy that interviewed me was in that '60s mod style.
Yeah, I remember
So
you saying that as he was
yeah,
going downstairs.
yeah, and that was a weird, kind of a weird twist on it all. So I don't know if I met hippie vampires or what, you know, but it was something was off.
Well,
So
thankfully you were able to break that trance, like not
yeah.
fall into it.
Oh, I wasn't under a trance at all.
Yeah.
That fear, there was no way. All I felt was afraid, like to my core, afraid. So I've never had that kind of fear since, and I've been in a lot of crazy situations, you know. But that was that was one of the top ones. So if you want to hear another one, I've got one for you.
Oh, of
It's
course, man, of
all
course.
right, all right. Well, this one I'm gonna disclose quite a bit about myself.
Okay.
I did 15 years in maximum security federal prison. Uh, while I was in federal prison, uh, the first prison that, do you know who Whitey Bulger is?
No.
Okay, James Whitey Bulger was a big Boston mobster. He was head of the Boston mob. He was number two on the most wanted list, besides Osama bin Laden. Uh, Johnny Depp played him in the movie Black Mass.
Okay, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah.
Okay, well, he came to the prison I was in, and they put him in a cell with me. And he started telling me stories that he wanted to talk. He'd been on the run for 19 years or something like that. And he started telling me all these stories about, you know, crimes he'd done and people he killed. And I had a deja vu, which to me is just a feeling that what you're experiencing had happened before, and you're remembering it as it occurs. Is that what your definition of a deja vu would be?
Yeah, like you've experienced it before, so something in your head is telling you,
this is
I
a memory
yeah, this is a memory.
as it happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's telling me these stories, and he's got these vicious, cold blue killer eyes, and he's telling me these stories, and he's pointing at me, and he's going, and I told him I'll kill you, you cocksucker, and he's staring me in the eyes, and I just saw those eyes of a killer, man, and I had a deja vu then, but that's a little different, I'm sure that
Yeah.
just meeting somebody like that, but
No,
that's
that's
that's that's my stories for you.
yeah. Well, those are wild, man. I mean, especially for the one that you just shared right now, like to experience the deja vu, because like what would what would be the reason for that?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. See that
is that something
that's
that kind of racks your brain?
Yeah, a little bit because I'm like, I've obviously never been murdered, or if I had, it was,
Yeah.
so, uh, but why it triggered a deja vu instead of me just being like, wow, um, I'd been in prison for 12 years. I'd met a lot of mobsters. Most of your mobsters go to federal pens. So I'd met a lot of big mobsters, big gang leaders, murderers, killers of all kinds. So I was like, this ain't nothing new to me. But
Yeah.
yeah, something about when he was telling them stories triggered that deja vu, and it was a really strong one. And he, like I said, he'd been on the run for 19 years, and he just wanted to talk and talk. And it was like 4 in the morning of him just spilling his beans, And I was like, hey, I'm trying to be respectful here, but I need to go to sleep, And I
Yeah.
actually asked him, I said, am I safe to sleep with you in here? He laughs. He's like, yeah, kid, you're all right. Go ahead, go to sleep, But I was like, man, that deja vu it was a trip. And then of course, any shoe, which is a special housing unit in prison, it's the hole basically. If you get in a fight or you get in any trouble,
Yeah.
you go to the hole, and they are some really haunted places. There's a lot of suicides that occur in the hole back there, and there's a lot of murders that have occurred back there, and you hear stuff all night. You'll see shadows slide by your cell door. You'll be sitting in the cell, and it'll get so cold you'll see your breath for a second or two,
Just out
and
of nowhere.
out of nowhere, yeah, you'll be sitting there, and at any hour of the day, though, it wasn't like at nighttime the spooks came out or nothing. I would be sitting there, just finished a meal, and start writing a letter, and the cell would just drop freezing cold, which was weird because this was in Pennsylvania, and it was summertime. It's usually, there's no AC in there.
Humid and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so you'd be pouring sweat, and then all of a sudden you see your breath, and you can feel the frost on your face from the temperature changes in the cell. And I just really believe that those were souls or energy of people who had committed suicide
Yeah.
or whatever, and they, for whatever reason, they were stuck in that prison environment. So
And you experience that all the time?
all
I can't imagine what that would be like to be like in a cell and
yeah,
knowing everybody is like in their cell for the night or during a certain time, and then you
yeah.
just catching shadows walking by when nobody is
Yeah,
walking
and the
around.
thing is, it's routine. All that is routine back there, and you learn the routine. You know that the guards are going to walk every 15 minutes. The guards are walking through, and they have loud keys. Not to be crude, but they don't want to see anybody pulling their thing, or
Yeah.
they don't want to see that. So they've got loud keys, and they're making noise coming down the tier. It's concrete. They wear boots. You can hear them a mile off. You know when a guard's coming down the run. And yeah, I would see shadows drift by my door, all hours. You would hear, voices, uh, and just crazy stuff in there all the time. And the worst part about it was you're locked in. So
Yeah.
if you get scared, you
You got
can't
nowhere to
leave.
run. Yeah.
Yeah, if there's an energy or something in your cell, you got nowhere to go. You're riding that out. So
Yeah.
it kind of hardened me to experiences. Like now, I'll see shadows sometimes, every once in a while, and I'm just like, it's a shadow. It doesn't
Yeah.
really. Most people, it would freak them out. I'm just like, yeah, been there, seen that. So
And did you experience that from like day one, or was it after a while of being there
no, day
that you
day
started
one,
to? Oh,
day
okay.
one. Yeah, as soon as you go back there, uh, you've probably been in a fight or got in trouble, and you're gonna lose some good time. So you're upset and your emotions are high when you first go back there. But then after a day or two, you settle into the routine. It's actually calmer because you're in a cell by yourself back there, and
Yeah.
you know you're not going to get yourself in a fight or in trouble, so you just kind of chill. But then yeah, you start noticing things right away, right away. Mostly
Yeah.
shadows back there. There's a lot of the energy back there manifests itself and shadows going by the door, underneath your door, which is really strange. When you see a black shape cruise right by under your door. A couple times I'd be laying there reading a book, and you notice any movement when you're all by yourself. You notice these things, especially in a prison cell. And a couple times I would see a shadow move in front of my door, where it looked like the guard was standing there at the bottom of the door, and I would look up at the window and there'd be nothing there, and the shadow would still be there, and then it passed slowly on, almost
Mm.
like a spirit or something, just kind of looking in the door and then moving down the range. So pretty wild, pretty
Were
wild.
they random, or was it like at certain times you would see certain shadows? Like you knew at a certain day, at a certain time,
Nah,
the shadow. No.
nah,
Okay.
random. You never knew. You never knew. Um, it felt like if I paid more attention to it, that it would happen a little more often. Like there were times where I was like, "Wow, man, I just saw a shadow," and I would sit there and wait and like stare, and then it would seem like as soon as you lost interest, there would be another shadow right there real quick,
Yeah.
and then but it was never a regular thing where you could predict it, or like I said, it happened during the day.
Yeah.
There's no natural light coming in there, so it's all dim light bulbs all the time back there. So it wouldn't, day or night doesn't matter back there, and I think
Yeah.
that might be the way it is too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I can. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out if it was like residual or just more of an intelligent type of haunting, like almost as if the spirits knew what they were doing.
it felt like they knew what they were doing, just because it wasn't a shadow here and then it zoomed off. It was uh, an intelligent motion of shadow, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
For instance, like sometimes a shadow would stop in the middle of the door and then move on, and I believe it would stop there to get your attention. You know what I mean? It didn't just stop and stay or just cruise right by. It would stop there for a second until you looked, and then it would move on, almost like whatever it was aware that you looked, and it was satisfied at that point, and it would move on. I think maybe I feel like maybe they were looking for some type of validation that they were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Acknowledgement.
yeah, but
Yeah.
again, in that situation where you can't go nowhere, you can't get away, I didn't feel like acknowledging anything like that. So I just kind of just kept it keeping on, man.
Yeah.
So there were guys who would make Ouija boards, and they would make them out of cardboard, and they would do Ouija boards, or they would do tarot cards. And there were guys who were Satanists, and there were really bad people back there, and I'm sure that having a concentration of bad people, in a steel and concrete environment, I'm sure there was residuals back there too. But to
Yeah.
me, it felt more like it was one or two intelligent, to a degree, spirits that were back there just kind of doing their thing. So
Yeah. Well, especially with it being an area where it's just a bunch of energies in one
yeah,
location. You have
yeah,
anger, like fear.
yep.
Probably some people are there like, okay, I'm finally away from everything. They'll probably take it as a calm aspect.
And
Um,
then, yeah, they might want to stay around just because, like you said, they're untouchable. Then at that point, and they can like
yeah.
a respite, if you will. I don't know, but yeah, that and so many suicides happen back then. I mean, you hear about it all the time. Oh, this guy killed himself last week in the shoe. This guy killed himself in the shoe. Hey, did you hear? There's just a lot of suicide going on back there, which is it's sad, but I feel like that kind of death and that kind of place. I don't know. I understand somebody would want the release of death if that was what they were seeking, but I'm not sure you could get it back there. Dying in that lonely, cold, steel and concrete place. I don't know.
Yeah, especially when it's like they're not going to even. close that area off
No,
afterwards. Yeah,
no.
somebody else will be there like the next day.
Oh yeah, within
Yeah,
hours. Within hours,
yeah,
they come in. They got a little investigation unit. They take pictures. They fill a report. They haul the body out. They have somebody come in and mop the floor. They change the mattress, and they throw the next guy in there. So
damn. That's some
yeah,
morbid shit.
yeah, yeah. But that's what I was saying. I wanted to also tell you that story to highlight that even in prison, I never felt fear like
Yeah,
I felt with that woman
with
in
the
that room.
previous, yeah.
Yeah, so pretty
Ugh.
crazy, man.
Have you had anything happen like afterwards? Like now, do you experience things?
Nah, just shadow. Well, I ride down uh I ride down Riverdale Road every morning, early in the
Oh
morning.
yeah, you told me
Yeah,
about that. Yeah,
I ride an e-bike, and I cruise down Riverdale, and it always feels kind of creepy, I've got a big spotlight on my bike, but it only goes 30, 40 feet, and it's dark out there at 4 in the morning. It's dark, and I was riding to work one morning, and I just happened to turn around and look. I don't have mirrors on my bike. I wanted to make sure nobody was flying up behind me in the one spotlight Camaro. Have you heard that story?
yeah,
But anyway, I wanted to make sure nobody was coming up behind me, so I turned back and looked, and I noticed I couldn't see my tail light flashing anymore. So I stopped my bike, and I got off, and I was looking under the seat for the tail light, and the tail light was gone. So I was like, oh man. So I just kind of took my flashlight and shined around. I see my tail light laying back on the road about 30, 40 feet away. And I walked back and grabbed my tail light, and I was walking back to the bike. I got that weird feeling like somebody's watching me. There's somebody watching me right here, right now. Uh, I got back to the bike. The taillight wasn't working. So I was like, oh, shit. So I called my girlfriend. I'm like, hey, my taillight's out. I'm on this dangerous road. What should I do? And she's like, nah, just come home. So I came home, plugged the light in, charged it, working fine. Next day, I go to work. I get right on the same spot of the road. I look back, my taillight's not working. It had gone dead right then and there. So now I avoid that part of the road. I don't know if
yeah.
could be 2 days in a row is not that big of a coincidence, but it was weird, and just
Well, for it to be in the
there's
same spot.
yeah, and there's a weird energy out there on that road at night when you're out there alone. I just the way that light cuts through the dark. Every time I turn a corner, I'm like, man, I'm expecting to see somebody on this road. I'm
Yeah,
expect. I haven't, thankfully, but there's always that expectation. I have two phones, so I run one camera. If I do ever get anything on film, you'll be the first one to know. I'll share it with
oh
you.
hell yeah, man.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. And for people who don't know, that is one of Colorado's like haunted spots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of the more popular haunted areas within Colorado. Like you said, the one had like Camaro.
Yeah. There's a story that in the 60s or 70s, I believe it was the early 70s. A guy had been racing a Camaro down that road, and he went off the road and crashed and died. And there's a story now that if you go down that road, sometimes people have reported uh, a Camaro flying up behind him with one headlight, and it gets beside you. You can't see through the windows or anything, and he tries to goad you into a race, and then he flies up ahead of you, goes around the corner, and you hear tires squeal, and then the car's just gone. It's not there anymore.
Yeah,
That's the story I heard anyway about the black Camaro, and
yeah,
then
that's
then
the one
there's
I heard
the
too.
then there's the phantom jogger. They say that there's a jogger that was hit. I did a little research. There were like 4 pedestrians killed in the last 10 years on that road. Uh,
Wow.
all sorts of auto accidents, fatal auto accidents on that
Yeah.
road. But the story goes that uh, a couple people have reported they were driving down that road. Their car started chugging and stopped, and then they heard like boom, boom, boom on their windows, and they were all freaked out looking around, and there was a handprint on the window, and they say that that's the phantom jogger looking for whoever ran him over, and he runs up and bangs and looks in the car, and when he sees you're not them, he your car can start.
Disappears. Yeah.
Yeah, your car can start and you can drive away. So that one's kind of. I hope I don't see him either.
Yeah, no.
So, but then there's stories
Especially
of
because you're on a bike. Like, what is he gonna knock on? You know?
yeah, bang on my leg.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stories of let's see what else is going on out there. There's stories of people have seen people hanging from the trees, and they say it was slaves from way back in the day that they see the ghosts of slaves hanging from some of the trees out
Jeez.
there. Uh, what else? There's I had a cousin. I had a cousin. I don't want to say his name because he might see the podcast, but he's a little flaky. He's a little flaky, so this could just be 100% his flakiness. But he swore to me one time that he was out there on that road at night on his motorcycle, and he came around a corner, and he said he stopped with his motorcycle out in the trees, and he watched a troop of spider monkeys play in the trees for like 10 minutes before they ran off into other trees and disappeared treetop to treetop. And he swears to this day that he saw spider monkeys out there in the trees on Riverdale Road. So
What?
yeah, that's what he says. That's what he says. So
That'd be
I don't know.
crazy.
Yeah, it might be crazy. I don't know, but
I don't know.
uh,
I don't know why I find that more hard to believe than the ghosts and spirits.
said there was a whole troop. He said he counted 11 monkeys out there in the tree, and they were just chittering and chattering, and they ran off in the next trees and disappeared. And he's been out there a few times looking, trying to see if he can spot them monkeys again. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
gotta see if I can do some more research on that road. I did one time. I did go down a road when I used to live in California. Um, it was up in the high desert, probably like 2 hours away from Vegas. Um, Me and my fiance were driving down that road. We were just gonna drive because they said it was haunted. As soon as we hit that road, right in the spot where they say uh, all the electronics start going crazy
oh,
in the car, and then it starts saying oil pressure high, shut car off. It starts telling me to do that, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm turning around, just getting out of here.
we're running the gauntlet tonight. No way
Yeah,
I'm stopping. Yeah, that's like I said on that. There's something about Riverdale. If you're from Colorado and you haven't had a chance, take the drive one night. Come on out to Riverdale Road. It's 11 miles. Drive safely. I might be out there riding my bike. I don't want to be a ghost of Riverdale Road
yeah,
myself.
no,
So drive safely, but a lot of people experience a lot of things out there. They say you can YouTube it; it's all over YouTube. You can actually Google it, believe it or not, and it'll pull up results for haunted Riverdale Road. They're saying it's the most haunted road in America or something like.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think those are the exact ones that popped up when I looked it up.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting, and who knows, might be something to it. Like I said, I run the camera at night, so if I do get anything out there, I'll shoot it to you and you can check it out.
yeah, yeah. And then we can you can share it with the people, and then
Sure,
you know
sure.
have those people who will be like, "This is fake," when you know it's real.
Yeah, well, that happened. People are gonna doubt what I've said tonight, but I was there. I saw it. I have nothing to gain by putting myself out there like I did tonight. I opened myself up to ridicule or whatever, but uh, there's a lot going on out there, and we need to look at it. They're making some slow scientific breakthroughs in the field.
Yeah,
Uh, like for instance, in the last 10 years, they did the science started measuring people as they passed away, and they were actually a little bit lighter the moment of
yeah,
death.
yeah. Like there's a weight of the soul.
There's
Yeah,
a weight, yeah, and they've proven that now. I mean, I think they've empirically proven that. I think they even have it down to a certain number of micro ounces or something like that.
yeah,
That the soul actually has weight to it. So it stands to reason for me anyway. If the soul has weight, then there's substance, and if there's substance, there's power to that. And it's hard to believe with time as linear as it is, and how the eons and eons and eons, the more we discover about the universe, how broad and vast it is.
yeah.
All that time, it's hard to believe that we as humans get 85, 90 years if we're lucky, and then we just blink out. It's I don't buy it. It doesn't fit the scheme of things.
No,
So yeah.
no. But I appreciate. I mean, with your stories, you didn't do like embellishments. Like you didn't say like when you went down into the basement, something dragged you down
Yeah, no,
into
no,
there. No, these were
no.
like simple, straightforward. This is what I experienced.
Yeah,
Stories.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I,
and I
you
appreciate
know,
you sharing them.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. It was a pleasure. Like I said, if I get anything else for you, I'll stay in contact and I'll shoot you the footage if I catch any footage, or if you ever want to have me back on, please do. I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, yeah. And if you have anything that you would like people to follow, whatever, you can share that right now if you
Ah,
wanted.
I don't. I'm not big on not big on social media.
No
If you
worries.
do, if you walk away from anything from this, I would say keep an open mind and you know be kind. Try to be kind to the people around you, and remember that everything you do has ramifications for your future. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, man, I appreciate these stories were
cool.
awesome, and I guarantee people are gonna dig them and be like, well, hopefully that brings out maybe somebody down where you experience like the cult
Yeah,
or vampire vibe. Maybe somebody will come forward and
that would
say
be
they
awesome.
experienced the same thing.
That would be awesome. It would be awesome to get some feedback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be great. I appreciate you, man.
no problem.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, we'll stay in contact with it
Yeah,
with
absolutely,
everything.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm following you.
and
So
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. To everybody listening, um, if you want to send in your own stories, you can do so by emailing inducedfearpod@gmail.com, Instagram at inducedfearpodcast, Facebook, all the same things. YouTube, do the like, comment, share, subscribe, whatever the YouTube shit is. And don't forget to ask questions and face your fears. Thanks for joining me and my guest Rob on this episode of Induced Fear.
right on. Thank you.
Later, guys.